బాబాగారి దర్శనం చేసుకొని బ్లెస్సింగ్స్ తీసుకుందాం. తర్వాత 24 ఆగస్టు భగవాన్ శ్రీ 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 గొలగముడి వెంకట స్వామి వారి యొక్క ఆరాధనోత్సవం అంటే వారి పుణ్యతిథి. మన దసరా రోజు నాడు బాబాగారి పుణ్యతిథి ఎలాగో వెంకట స్వామి వారి పుణ్యతిథి ఆగస్టు 24 మంగళవారం అవుతుంది. ఆ రోజు కూడా మనం ఆరాధనోత్సవం జరుపుకుంటాం ఇక్కడ గుడిలో పెద్ద ఎత్తున. సో గురు పుణ్యం లాగానే చాలా చాలా ముఖ్యమైన ఈవెంట్ మనకి. దానికి కూడా బోల్డ్ మంది డివోటీస్ అందరూ కూడా పెద్ద సంఖ్యలో విచ్చేసి వెంకటస్వామి గారి బాబా గారి యొక్క బ్లెస్సింగ్స్ తీసుకోవాలని చెప్పి కోరుతున్నామండి.
Pure product.
Nanotechnology-enabled oxygen sterilizer and respirator.
We are excited to let you know that Red India Celebration 2021 International is here. You can join us from any city, any place, anywhere.
Do you love to read? Do you love to think and act? Yes, we are there to support you. Come and join us. Register yourself at www.readindia.info. If you love to read, we are here.
భారత స్వాతంత్ర వజ్రోత్సవ వేడుకలను అమెరికా తెలుగు సంఘం ఆటా సాహిత్య సదస్సు సాహితీ సంబరాలను ఆగస్టు 14 నాడు ఘనంగా నిర్వహించబోతుంది. ఈ కార్యక్రమంలో డాక్టర్ నందమూరి లక్ష్మీపార్వతి గారు, డాక్టర్ నందిని సీతారెడ్డి గారు, శ్రీ జొన్నవిత్తుల రామలింగేశ్వరరావు గారు, శ్రీ ఆర్ నారాయణమూర్తి గారు, శ్రీ పెంచిల్దాస్ గారు, శ్రీ ఇమిటేషన్ రాజు గారు ఆత్మీయ అతిథులుగా పాల్గొనబోతున్నారు. ఈ సాహితీ సంబరాలను అమెరికా ఈఎస్టీ టైం 11:30 AM డిష్ నెట్వర్క్ ఛానల్ 771 TV5 లో లైవ్ లో వీక్షించగలరు.
ఆర్మాయిల్ బై గీత అంటేనే నమ్మకం, నాణ్యత, తగ్గింపు ధరలు. వర్జీనియా నుంచి ప్రారంభం అయిన విశ్వసనీయ స్వర్ణ వస్త్ర ప్రస్థానం. కాంజీవరం, బెనారస్, వెంకటగిరి, మైసూర్, డిజైనర్ శారీస్ ఎన్నో వెరైటీస్ కలవు. పెళ్లి పట్టు చీరలు, మగ్గం వర్క్, లెహెంగాలు, ఇలా ఎన్నో లేటెస్ట్ ట్రెండీ అండ్ ట్రెడిషనల్ డిజైన్స్ కి పెట్టింది పేరు. 22 క్యారెట్ హాల్మార్క్ బంగారం అండ్ GIA సర్టిఫైడ్ డైమండ్ జ్యువెలరీ అతి తక్కువ ధరకే అద్భుతమైన క్వాలిటీతో మీ ముందుకు తీసుకొస్తున్నారు. ఆర్మాయిల్ బై గీతాలో షాపింగ్ అంటేనే ఒక మధురమైన అనుభూతి. Armoire by Geeta. For trendy, traditional and latest jewelry collections, please contact Geeta Chintavali at 571-422-0386. Email gchintavali@gmail.com.
Do you want to know about your future? Do you want to fix your love and marriage situation? Clear separation issues, clear spiritual blocks, business problems, career issues or health challenges. Astrologer Priya can help you circumvent all your life's challenges in a jiffy with her deep and profound astrological charts and expertise, and her clairvoyant abilities can give a quick fix and a peaceful solution to life's most difficult problems and puzzles. For more information, please call Priya at 201-925-7731. Also, please visit Priya's website, astrologybypriya.com. And remember, her new clients will receive one-time free reading.
Wonder how you can get groceries, your favorite food from your favorite restaurants, flowers, delectable desserts from the best bakers at your doorstep? Wonder how you can avoid those lengthy lines in your favorite stores and sit at home with ease and get your desired goods? iPerks is the way to go. iPerks is a lovely, candid, user-friendly, fun mobile app to shop and navigate through all that you love and get them delivered at your doorstep with just a few quick clicks. Now available in a 60-mile radius from Edison, New Jersey, you need not shop till you drop. Let iPerks drop off all that you love to the place you call home. With all your items, groceries, best food, flowers, and more, dispensed in embellished and strongly packed biodegradable bags, be rest assured that what you ordered comes home safe and intact. Available on both Android and iOS, iPerks app says this is your opportunity to indeed let go of those clumsy carts. So with no delay today, download iPerks app and bask inside cozily, just clicking on your phone screen. Behold and watch your important groceries, favorite foods, goods, and goodies arrive outside your door. Shop with fun, pick with ease, save the time and skip the line. iPerks, your one-stop app for everything you want.
There is no better time other than summer to start preparing for the admission tests. Start early in this race and increase your chances of getting into Ivy League. Tiorito brings you an 8-week-long summer camp that features test prep by expert faculty and exclusively designed courses for students. Grab this opportunity to get counseling from renowned industry experts. Book your spot today. Tiorito.
ఆగస్టు నెలలో కూడా చాలా ముఖ్యమైన 2 ఈవెంట్లు వస్తున్నాయండి. 15th ఆగస్ట్ యాజ్ యూ నో మన ఇండిపెండెన్స్ డే. సో ఆ రోజు తప్పకుండా మందిర్ ఆ రోజు మొత్తం ఓపెన్ ఉంటుంది. ఆ రోజు కూడా అందరినీ దర్శనం రావాల్సిందిగా మేము కోరుతున్నాం. ఎందుకంటే 15 ఆగస్టు మనకి స్వతంత్ర దినోత్సవం చాలా ముఖ్యమైన రోజు. ఆ రోజు మనం గుర్తు చేసుకోవడం కోసం అందరూ కూడా తప్పకుండా వచ్చి బాబాగారి దర్శనం చేసుకొని బ్లెస్సింగ్స్ తీసుకుందాం. తర్వాత 24 ఆగస్టు భగవాన్ శ్రీ 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 గొలగముడి వెంకటేశ్వర స్వామి వారి యొక్క ఆరాధనోత్సవం అంటే వారి పుణ్యతిథి. మన దసరా రోజు నాడు బాబాగారి పుణ్యతిథి ఎలాగో వెంకటేశ్వర స్వామి వారి పుణ్యతిథి ఆగస్టు 24 మంగళవారం అవుతుంది. ఆ రోజు కూడా మనం ఆరాధనోత్సవం జరుపుకుంటాం ఇక్కడ గుడిలో పెద్ద ఎత్తున. సో గురు పూర్ణిమ లాగానే చాలా చాలా ముఖ్యమైన ఈవెంట్ మనకి. దానికి కూడా బోల్డ్ మంది డివోటీస్ అందరూ కూడా పెద్ద సంఖ్యలో విచ్చేసి వెంకటేశ్వర స్వామి గారి బాబాగారి యొక్క బ్లెస్సింగ్స్ తీసుకోవాలని చెప్పి కోరుతున్నామండి.
Pure product.
Nanotechnology enabled oxygen sterilizer and respirator.
We are excited to let you know that Radiant Day Celebration 2021 International is here. You can join us from any city, any place, anywhere.
Do you love to read? Do you love to think and act? Yes, we are there to support you. Come and join us. Register yourself at www.readindia.info. If you love to read, we are here.
భారత స్వాతంత్ర వజ్రోత్సవ వేడుకలను అమెరికా తెలుగు సంఘం ఆటా సాహిత్య సదస్సు సాహితీ సంబరాలను ఆగస్టు 14 నాడు ఘనంగా నిర్వహించబోతుంది. ఈ కార్యక్రమంలో డాక్టర్ నందమూరి లక్ష్మీపార్వతి గారు, డాక్టర్ నందిని సీతారెడ్డి గారు, శ్రీ జొన్నవిత్తుల రామలింగేశ్వరరావు గారు, శ్రీ ఆర్ నారాయణమూర్తి గారు, శ్రీ పెంచిల్దాస్ గారు, శ్రీ ఇమిటేషన్ రాజు గారు ఆత్మీయ అతిథులుగా పాల్గొనబోతున్నారు. ఈ సాహితీ సంబరాలను అమెరికా ఈఎస్టీ టైం 11:30 AM డిష్ నెట్వర్క్ ఛానల్ 771 TV5 లో లైవ్ లో వీక్షించగలరు.
ఆర్మాయిల్ బై గీత అంటేనే నమ్మకం, నాణ్యత, తగ్గింపు ధరలు. వర్జీనియా నుంచి ప్రారంభం అయిన విశ్వసనీయ స్వర్ణ వస్త్ర ప్రస్థానం. కాంజీవరం, బెనారస్, వెంకటగిరి, మైసూర్, డిజైనర్ శారీస్ ఎన్నో వెరైటీస్ కలవు. పెళ్లి పట్టు చీరలు, మగ్గం వర్క్, లెహెంగాలు, ఇలా ఎన్నో లేటెస్ట్ ట్రెండీ అండ్ ట్రెడిషనల్ డిజైన్స్ కి పెట్టింది పేరు. 22 క్యారెట్ హాల్మార్క్ బంగారం అండ్ GIA సర్టిఫైడ్ డైమండ్ జ్యువెలరీ అతి తక్కువ ధరకే అద్భుతమైన క్వాలిటీతో మీ ముందుకు తీసుకొస్తున్నారు. ఆర్మోయిడ్ బై గీతాలో షాపింగ్ అంటేనే ఒక మధురమైన అనుభూతి. ఆర్మోయిడ్ బై గీతా for trendy, traditional and latest jewelry collections. Please contact Geeta Chintavali at 571-422-0386. Email
అమెరికన్ తెలుగు అసోసియేషన్ మన సంస్కృతి సాంప్రదాయాలను మన ముందు తరాలకు అందించడమే కాకుండా మనలో మనము మన తెలుగు వారికి ఇక్కడ సహాయ సహకారాలు అందిస్తూ అలాగే మన మాతృభూమి మన రెండు రాష్ట్రాల్లో కూడా మనకు చేతనైన సహాయం ఆట ద్వారా అందించడం కోసం పెట్టుకున్న ఒక సంస్థ. దీనిలో భాగంగానే మనం ఎన్నో కార్యక్రమాలు చేస్తున్నాం. ఆట ఎమర్జెన్సీ సర్వీసెస్ లైక్ ఆట సేవా టీమ్, దాంతోపాటు మనకు ఆటా మెంబర్ బెనిఫిట్స్ కింద వీఆర్ గివింగ్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ అదర్ బెనిఫిట్స్ ఆల్సో. అండ్ అఫ్ కోర్స్ ఫ్రీక్వెంట్గా మనము ఈ ఇన్ఫర్మేషనల్ సెషన్స్, ఇన్ఫర్మేషనల్ వెబినార్స్ ఇవన్నీ చేస్తూ ఉంటాం. అందులో భాగంగానే ఈరోజు మనం ఎస్టేట్ ప్లానింగ్ ఈజ్ ఫర్ ఎవ్రీ వన్ అనే ఒక టాపిక్ మీద ఈరోజు ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఇవ్వడానికి మనతో పాటు మధురిమ గారు మరియు హషీ రిచర్డ్స్ గారు ఉన్నారు. సో మీరందరూ కూడా విని మీకు ఏమన్నా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నా ఏదన్నా కానీ యూట్యూబ్ ద్వారా కామెంట్ సెక్షన్లో ఇవ్వచ్చు, లేదా డైరెక్ట్గా info@abr.world.orgకి ఈమెయిల్ ద్వారా కూడా తెలియపరచవచ్చు. ఇప్పుడు మధురిమ గారు, యూ కెన్ టేక్ ఓవర్ ప్లీజ్. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Okay. Thank you, Anil Garu. Thank you, Atta. As Anil said, that my name is Madhurima Paturi. I'm an immigration attorney and the legal chair for the ATA. In the process of getting the educational awareness of certain rules and regulations, we've been doing few things on the immigration and other topics. I thought that one of the topic frequently asked, especially from the last year during our members and the community around, is about the wills and trusts. So in general, there is so much to learn about the estate planning, but today our goal through the Hashi is trying to get the very basic awareness of what should we be knowing about the basic wills. Is it something like just write on your paper and put it in your closet and forget about it and hoping that everything will be taken care after us? Or is it more than that? Let's find out more details on the difference between the wills and trust, why one has to take over the other, how to execute these documents, and how to help after us who will be taking our estate. While we are living, how we have to protect these estates and manage these things, and also especially like when you're traveling or flying and having the kids back in the home, what can we do to protect them while we're gone? So these are the few things I thought that it's very, very important to educate ourselves. These are everyday things. It's important to plan ahead. It does take time, but that's why we have the professionals like attorneys who will be taking care and guide you to get this up and running. So without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Hashi Richards. And she practiced law here in Florida. She does estate planning, trademark, and also immigration. And she born in Guntur. We were just talking about it, She moved very, very engaged to America when she's little like as less as 2 years old. And she grew up in Chicago area and went to the law school in Miami, settled down in Florida. And the fun facts which I really like about my friend is she's so busy as a basketball player and a wife. Her husband is a professional basketball player. He just got retired, but her son, who is 7 years old, also very, very already a pro basketball player. And she's a vegan mom channel running out successfully. So there you go, Hashi. You take over and give us our members the basic information about what one has to learn about the wills and trusts and just managing the whole estate planning.
Thank you so much, Madhu. That was a wonderful introduction. And thank you, Atta, for having me and hosting me today. I appreciate your time. So estate planning is for everyone. That's the title of today's webinar. And my goal today is to demystify this area of law, especially, you know, in our community, in the Indian American community. I find that it's not a topic that's really talked about amongst each other and even within your own family structure. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a slideshow prepared, so just to have some visuals to look at. I know Madhu will be moderating some of the questions. And towards the very end, we'll talk a little bit about assets in India, just briefly. Okay, so here's just my background. Madhu went over it already. I have a dual JD MBA from University of Miami, go Hurricanes, and I live in Orlando. So if you need any Florida estate planning needs, that's what I'm covering today. And let me segue into saying that anything that I talk about today is not legal advice specific to your situation or your estate planning. And also, I'm only licensed to practice estate planning in the state of Florida. So if you live in a different state and you're watching, you need to consult an attorney in your state because estate planning is specific, the probate process is specific to your own state. Even though there's federal taxation, estate tax guidelines, the specific to your own estate planning is state specific. So just wanted to clear that up. All right, so what we're going to cover are these topics here, you know, common estate planning questions, important reasons to do estate planning, what is a will versus what is a living trust, and the differences between the two. We'll cover some other important estate planning documents that people call ancillary documents. What, quite frankly, they're really not ancillary, they're really at the forefront while you're alive. And then we'll talk about some issues relating to non-US citizen spouses, some considerations specific to India, and you know, if you would like to assist relatives that are living in India. So I think that people think that when you talk about estate planning, it's a huge deal, right? Oh my gosh, I may not have an estate, I may not have enough money, and I'm here to break away all those misconceptions. Many people think like that, and I'm here to answer any of the questions and, you know, help you, maybe guide you to properly crafting an estate plan for your own family. So what is an estate plan? When someone says, oh, I need to do my estate, or you really need to get your estate together, what does that mean? So I like to look at estate planning in 3 parts, right? So the first part is while you're alive and well, and you have your capacity, how are you going to plan for possibly being incapacitated later in life, right? Who's going to make decisions for you when you can't? What are some of your end of life wishes? And how do you want, and who do you want to manage your property and money if you're not able to while you're alive? That's part 1. The middle part is planning for your death, right? When you've passed away, how do you want your assets to be distributed? Who do you want to manage that for you? And then the third part, a lot of people may not think about, is legacy planning. It's not just, here's my will, I'm leaving you this, but what are some of the values and traditions and hopes and dreams that you may have for your children, for your family members, that you can convey along with your will? And oftentimes that's done with letter writing and journal writing and things like that. Okay, so it's a 3-part process. And typically, most people know that you need a will, right? So it's called a last will and testament. And if you only had a will, just a will, it would name the personal representative. Here in Florida, that's what it's called. In some states, it's called an executor. And that personal representative has stepped into your shoes now that you've passed away, and they are going to check off all the boxes going through probate for your own estate. They'll wrap up your final taxes, pay bills, all of those things. In this will also, you're able to name a person or persons to care for your minor children. Here in Florida, the age of majority is 18. So if you have children under that age, you can name in your will at your passing who you would like to take care of your children. Of course, in Florida, it's a court-appointed process, but your will is the best evidence of who you wanted to be appointed by the court. The will is only effective at your death, and you have to present it, submit it to the probate court. And there's 0 privacy. If you Google Jacqueline Onassis, you can see her whole will and who she left everything to. And so there's 0 privacy, it's public record. Here in Florida and some other states, I'm sure you can view things like this online. So the question often arises, hey, you know what? I don't have a will, so I'm not going to worry about it. You know what? My husband will take care of everything when I'm gone. The kids will get everything. Well, that may not be what you intended, right? And so if you don't have a will, guess who has a plan for you? The state that you live in, right? Each state has their own intestacy laws, and intestacy is just a fancy word for the state statute that tells you how you have to distribute your assets. The courts will decide that. The judge will follow the statute word for word, and it may not be what you intended. For example, if you are like not having a relationship with your children and they're one of the people that are supposed to inherit, they will get it, and that may not be coinciding with your wishes. All right. By the way, the court also would decide who would take care of your minor children if you didn't have it named in your will. So I mentioned the probate process, and you may have been through it with maybe some family members. And I'll tell you that when I graduated from law school, my first job was doing this, right? Working at a private bank doing estate administration. And I must say that it wasn't a fun process. It's a long process. The family members are involved, and it's a very stressful time because not only has your loved one passed away, but now you are dealing with the court's timeline. So I went over some things here that sort of illustrate the downsides of probate. It's expensive. All the whole time while the probate process is going, guess who you're paying? You're paying court costs, filing fees. You're also paying an attorney here in Florida, at least. And attorneys' fees are statutorily based here. So they say reasonable fees. And typically they start with a medium-sized estate, like a flat fee of $3,000 plus 3% of your estate value, right? And so that's not very cost effective. The average probate is about 18 months, and that is from the start to the finish, meaning during that time, those assets are not available to the beneficiaries. You're waiting, you're sort of in a holding pattern. There is court oversight over every single step. And again, the no privacy. And let's not forget, if you live here in Florida and you own properties in multiple states, you have to do a probate in each one of those states to deal with that property. And finally, until the judge signs off on the order saying this process is done, everyone has to wait for their distributions. And if you were someone relying on money from a bank account from the person who's passed away, you're stuck. And it really, really presents a hardship to families in this type of situation. So just wanted to clear up the misconception if people think, oh, well, I don't have a will, so I won't need probate, or I have a will, I won't need probate. You need probate whether you have a will or not. And any accounts, assets in your individual name will have to be probated. So oftentimes people ask me, you know what, Hashi, I'm going to just add my spouse to everything, or add my child, minor child, which is, please don't do that, to all of my accounts. And so it'll be jointly owned, and then I don't have to worry about probate. Well, that's partly true. If they're jointly titled, they won't pass through the probate process. However, there's a host of other problems, right? The accounts are now vulnerable to joint creditors. That joint owner is co-owner. They can do whatever they want with that property, right? They can go and totally wipe out the bank account. And there may be gift tax consequences as well if it's over a certain amount. All those are not good problems to have, right? So then people say, well, you know what? I'll do a transfer on death or pay on death, which is another way to avoid probate. And that's fine too. However, the same situation applies. The creditors are going to be waiting in the wings to try to get access to these assets. The other issue with this too is if you name someone payable on death, for example, if you have a bank account, it has $100,000 in it, and upon your passing, you filled out that card at the bank saying it goes to my child or my spouse. Particularly, let's use a minor child for an example, they will get an outright distribution of $100,000. I don't know about you, but I'd rather my 9-year-old son, not get $100,000. Not to mention, if they're a minor child, that has to be held in a guardianship. They're not able to just take that money. It's held until they're 18. And at that point, they'll get an outright distribution, which is also a nightmare because I don't want my son at 18 to have a lump sum of money. I know what I would have done if I was 18 and I had access to that type of money, right? So these are just some things to think about as you're going through your own assets and your own accounts. So what are some solutions to some of the problems we were talking about, right? I always like to say, people like to list problems, but what are some of the ways we can solve? Let's be like creative and think outside of the box here. And one of the ways is to create a trust. And so here is a diagram of a trust. And in the middle is the Smith family. So this is a Smith family trust. A husband and a wife have created this trust. And here is the beneficiaries of this trust are first each other. So while this trust is alive and you're alive, it's a living, breathing document. So you can add assets to it. You can take assets out as you see fit. You can use it for however you see fit, just like a regular bank account with titled in your own name. When, a typical plan is spouses are co-trustees together managing it. And then when one spouse dies, the other spouse takes over. And then when that spouse passes, everything goes to beneficiaries, usually the children. And so this is a typical plan here. I have a picture here of a house and bank accounts and things like that, which you can use and fund your trust with. Funding is just a fancy word for retitling, right? So, and I'm not giving any legal advice on how you should retitle your assets. If you have a trust, you should be talking to your own attorney about that. But typically people would fund this trust with bank accounts, home, real estate, other things like that. There's a little stop sign here for retirement accounts because you have to be very careful funding your trust with retirement accounts because depending on who your beneficiaries are in your trust, it may not be appropriate. And also there's a new thing called the Secure Act. And without getting too much into the detail, that also limits the amount of time people can take distribution. So that's another area that you'd want to talk to your estate planning attorney about. So here's just another illustration. A trust accomplishes all these goals. You are using it while you're alive, and then your beneficiaries are going to be benefiting from it after your passing. And it's a seamless transition because all of these assets will go right directly into the trust upon your passing. And there's really no probate process that will have to take months and months to happen. Well, if you have a properly funded setup trust. And there's the little stop sign, no to probate court. There may be a simplified probate process, but nothing near, this 18-month, 1-year timeline. When I was talking to Madhu when we were deciding to do this presentation, we talked about some of the reasons why it's so important to do estate planning, as opposed to like some other areas of law, like criminal law, where it's maybe a little more urgent, or family law, if there's a divorce and you have to get it done. Estate planning is almost neglected in some ways because people don't think about, or they may not want to think about death, right? I'm here to say that I don't like to think about it either, but it's something that we have to think about, right? For our own families, to protect our legacy. And so let's bring it up in the open. Let's make it a normal conversation and sort of normalize speaking about this. And that's one of the main reasons to do it, to talk about it with your family so they know where all these things are. Oftentimes, and I'm not just saying it's Indian families, but families have sort of a cloak of secrecy on what they own and what they have and who's going to get what. And I would like to bust the lid open on that and make it, let's talk about it normal dinner conversations, right? And it's not to say we're doing it because the kids are greedy and they need to know, but it's effective planning, right? Responsible planning. So I'm just so thrilled while I'm making this presentation to be able to say that openly, because I think maybe it'll get a conversation going. So one of the main reasons we've talked about appointing a guardian, right? And Madhu and I was talking about this with her. I gave a really good example, right? In Florida, for my clients, I draft not only, the will with the permanent guardian, but I also do a temporary guardianship document, meaning, for example, if you and your husband are out or on vacation and your kids are at home, your minor children, and you've named a permanent guardian who is in another state far away, and something happens while you're on vacation or you're out to dinner or at a meeting and neither of you can get home, what normally will happen is whoever's caring for the children may call the police. And if they call the police, Child Protective Services will come and take the children, right? Again, my child would not like that. He'd be very uncomfortable. And so this temporary guardianship paper gives somebody, maybe a neighbor, the authority to come and take custody of your child while they figure out how long it's going to take your permanent guardian to come while you go through the court process. So that's very important. And then you can either do it here in Florida by a last will, which we talked about, or you can even do a separate writing. This slide here talks about, most of you are familiar with, minor children can't own property, so the court will have to be involved. If you have a trust, you can name a trustee to manage all of that, which avoids, again, this court oversight that we've talked about. Who else may need help from protecting their inheritance, right? People that may be bad at managing money. People that have outstanding debts, creditors, divorce situations. It's more protected in a trust where there's a trustee managing it, distributing it, controlling that, versus it's sitting openly in a bank account in your own name where anyone can come have access to it. I like to call it creditors and predators, right? So a trust offers some sort of protection over, just sitting openly for anyone's taking. And this is interesting too, if you have a blended family, so if this is a second marriage and you have children from a prior marriage, a typical scenario would be, I leave everything to my spouse, and then that spouse would leave everything to their own children. And so guess who gets disinherited? The children from the first spouse, right? And that's a nightmare situation, not the intention of the first spouse. And so a trust, a properly drafted trust, would protect children of both marriages and also the joint children, if there's joint children as well. And also, children that have special needs, you can set up special need provisions in your own trust that any distributions they receive from that special needs trust, any donation, any money put into those special needs trusts won't interfere with the benefits they get, any government benefits they get. They won't be disqualified if you set up what's called a third party special needs trust. And again, this is very specific to your own situation. So you'd have to talk to an attorney about that as well. One thing a trust can do too is also, business succession planning, assigning interest of a business you may own to the trust and allowing the trust to then manage that business for you. What happens to the business when you pass away? Will your children take over it? Is an employee going to buy it? All of these things are sort of questions we can start thinking about when we plan our own estate. And I love this slide because we always have to think about Fluffy or Fido. And in Florida, you're allowed to set up a pet trust. I love my dog. My mom is taking care of our dog now. And setting up a pet trust is so important because who's going to take care of the dog or the cat, right? That's been a part of your family. And so you have to check. Some states don't have this yet, but hopefully your state does. Because if you're like me, your pet is part of your family. And then this slide is, like a summary of will versus trust, right? And so I went over basically all of this, but the main question you want to ask yourself is will versus trust. The main question is, how much control do you want to have, right? How much control do you want to have over this process? And what are your goals for your family? And maybe a will may be enough for you, right? If you don't care really or not concerned about outright distributions, your kids are all adults and they don't have creditor problems and all these things, maybe a simple will is fine. But if you want all of these other things we talked about, asset protection, privacy, avoiding probate, then a trust may be for you. Please note, though, that when you have a living trust, there's costs associated with that too, right? Every year the trust is being administered. There's people that you have to pay compensation to, like the trustee. If you have a corporate trustee, like a bank, they take a percentage. And if I cannot state this enough, a trust is useless, absolutely useless, unless it's funded. Unless you put something in there, unless you retitle your assets, very important. It's a perfect timing now. We're in the beginning of August. I don't know if you have college age children or kids that have just turned 18. I don't know about you, but my son will always be my baby, even when he turns 18. And so when that happens, you need to also think about these documents, not only for yourself, right? For yourself, for your spouse, but also your kids that have just turned 18. Because at that point, well, in Florida at least, I don't know what the age of majority is in your state, but the day that they turn that age, you are no longer legally entitled to the management of their life, right? And their documents and their personal privacy, private information that's not yours to have. So let's go over these documents. I mentioned earlier, they're called ancillary documents, but they're very important. So let's go. Number one, this pour over will, by the way, this is not something for the kids that just turned 18 unless they have a trust. It's in this section because it's part of the living trust. So when you have a living trust, you automatically have a pour over will with it. And it's exactly like it sounds. It pours over into the trust. And so any assets that you may have forgotten that are in your own name, I like to say, if you have that winning lottery ticket on the day that you pass, that is a probate asset, right? That has to be probated and it'll just pour over into your trust. And so it kind of catches anything that's left. And so the first one is financial power of attorney. It's often called a durable power of attorney. And this is who's going to step into your shoes while you're alive and handle your financial affairs, who's going to sign checks, pay your bills, be able to go down to the bank, right? This is important for your own newly 18-year-old child as well here in Florida. Durable medical power of attorney, and here in Florida, we also will call it a healthcare surrogate. And this one is very important too. If you are, say you're in the hospital, you just had surgery, and the doctor comes out and says, oh, you know what, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Do I have your permission? People think, at least here in Florida, that the spouse is automatically the one that can make that decision. Untrue. They don't automatically defer to the spouse. You may be separated from the spouse. You don't maybe not want the spouse to make that decision, right? And so you have to have these documents even though you're married. They're not automatically going to defer to the spouse, nor do they have that right. So healthcare surrogate, very important. Who's going to make that decision for you in case you are unable to, okay? Also for your child that just turned 18, they will need this as well. Now, living will or advance directive, here in Florida, it's called a living will. And basically, this is a document saying if you're at the end stages of your life, here in Florida, there's 3 different choices. If I'm in any one of these conditions, what do I want to happen? Do I want them to pull me off of life support? If any of you Google Terry Schiavo, very, very famous case here in Florida on a woman who went into a coma, and her husband said, she told me I wanted to be taken off life support. And her parents said, no, I want her, she told us she wanted to be kept on life support. And it ended up being a multi-year court battle because she didn't have this document. And I'm not faulting her, right? It's just a travesty all around. But if she had something like this, it would have been much simpler, right? And this also, it leaves the guesswork taken out of what you'd want to happen to you if you had one of those end stage conditions. And all of these documents may need to be witnessed and or notarized in your own state. So you need to follow, a lot of them are statutorily based, so you need to follow exactly what the state statutes say on these documents. And the final one is a HIPAA authorization, which you probably signed already many times, but sometimes you may want to add other people on there that are not your healthcare surrogate. I know for me, I have one of my friends listed on there just in case my husband may need help making a decision. Maybe he can call one of my girlfriends, this one that I have listed, to ask her, and then she can talk to the doctor or she can review my medical results, right? And so it definitely helps with easing tension and uncertainty in times like this when decisions have to be made. The one point I want to make is for your own adult children, you'll need these documents. And if you have minor children, I draft for my clients as well, a healthcare surrogate for minor children and also a power of attorney for minor children. I'll give you an example. I have clients that travel often and their children, their minor children, are being taken care of by the mother-in-law and the sister. And in that case, their names are listed on these documents because if they have to go take the kids to the doctor or sign a paper for school or permission slip, they have the authority to do that. Another situation is if your children go on vacation with another family and you're unable to be reached, you may want to name those parents that they're traveling with as their healthcare surrogate in case they have to take them to the hospital or they have to make a medical decision. You know, until I started practicing in this area of law, I had no idea of all of these different scenarios, right, that possibly could happen. So those are the end of the ancillary documents. Madhu, I know that I've been talking nonstop. Before I get to the India asset part, is there anything that you wanted to ask or?
No, I just want to remind everybody these wills and trusts, as you mentioned earlier, these are state specific, some of them. You need to contact your own attorney locally, and also in every state when the child becomes adult is also different, so obviously you need to look at the age requirements and other things. Just want to remind once in a while so that they are on the track that whatever you're saying, it's not for everyone, it's very state specific. And it's a great way you're saying right now it's important to talk about the non-US citizens and also how to protect, if you're already citizen in the United States, how to protect your assets in India, right? So I know that you're probably going to do that. So you go ahead and we'll take the questions at the end.
Okay. So in America, if you are not a US citizen, but you're a green card holder or a resident, you still need an estate plan. You're still living here. You're still paying taxes. You're still subject to all of the US rules and laws, with US citizens, with people that have estates here, that it's usually an exemption amount right now of $11.7 million, right? That's the exemption amount from taxes in 2021. So if you leave assets in excess of that, you will have to pay an estate tax, right? And that's a flat percentage of 40%. So without getting into too much detail of the tax code and all of that, I've highlighted some points here, right? So non-US citizen spouses and US citizen spouses, you can gift to people up to $15,000 a year with no gift tax consequence, right? You can give $15,000 to as many people as you want. And if you are both US citizen spouses married to each other, you can gift unlimited to each other. It's unlimited gifting, unlimited marital gifting. If you are a US citizen spouse married to a non-US citizen, you can only gift this year, it changes every year, up to $159,000 to your non-citizen spouse, okay? So that's for 2021. So let's look at a conventional case where both spouses are US citizens. Again, there's unlimited marital deduction, and you can make as many gifts as you want. And when the first spouse passes, there'll be no estate tax. It'll only be on the surviving spouse's death. And again, this is for people that have estates in excess of $11.7 million. But it's good to know because they always talk about, when I first started, by the way, the exemption amount was $675,000, and it's gone up greatly. There was even a period where there was zero exemption, and now they've been talking about it sunsetting and it going back to maybe 3 million. And so you have to be aware of this when you're planning your own estate and how this may affect your own situation. And so assets left to a surviving spouse are not subject to federal estate tax if the spouse is a US citizen. But if you are a non-US citizen spouse, and if you pass away first, that money does not qualify for the unlimited marital deduction unless you have done some planning, right? So if you are thinking about, you may have a larger estate, you may, and I strongly urge that you talk to your own estate planning attorney about this trust called a QDOT, right? It's a qualified domestic trust. And you can leave property in that trust instead of directly to your spouse, and it will pass estate tax free. But please, see an estate planning attorney in your own state. And this is all, it makes sense if you think about it, because you know what? If you're a non-US citizen spouse and you get this inheritance, this money, they're afraid that if your US citizen spouse passes away first, that you're going to inherit the money and then pay no tax and then leave, right? And that's not fair, I guess, to the US government. So they're protecting themselves as well. So these rules sort of come into play if we're dealing with larger estates. So just keep this in mind, in the back of your mind, spouse. One other thing you can do too, by the way, is become a citizen, right? So then you don't have to really worry about this. So if you're on track to do that, Madhu or I can help you with that as well. All right, so the next slide, let's talk about assets in India, right? I am not licensed in India. I don't have an Indian law license. Now, so any assets owned in India or any country for that matter, you are taxed on any assets that you own worldwide. It doesn't matter what country. And let's be clear, if you think that you can hide them, you can't. They will find out about it. And they is the US government, the IRS. So we just have to be clear and, honest about any of the assets that we have. My suggestion for any clients or anyone watching is if you have assets in India or any other country, please, please, please hire a counsel attorney, advocate, right, in that country to help you plan for your estate, right? Any assets that you have in that country on the planning side and also the administration side, okay? And you can have two wills. You can have a will here, sort of dealing with all of your US assets, and then you can have an Indian will and dealing with the assets there in that state, right? And then your Indian attorney and your US-based attorney they can work together in conjunction and try to figure out how we're going to manage your plan. And doing this, planning ahead, makes it so much easier, right, for your successor trustee and your personal representative to administer your trust and your will when you're gone. And imagine this, right? If you have a US attorney only and you've left property in India with no plan, I'll tell you this, the attorney will charge maybe hourly to talk to somebody in India, and that bill will rack up very quickly, right? To try to figure out Indian laws, estate planning laws. What a nightmare. And even for me, I was born there. And when I think about trying to go there and maybe figure out some things, it's difficult, right? So one thing you may want to think about is if you don't want your children to have to maybe sort of navigate through those laws, maybe think of a plan to deal with that property prior to your passing. I'm not suggesting you sell it or anything like that, but maybe sort of talk to whoever you need to speak to on how you can alleviate that burden somehow before you pass. And then finally here, if you are interested, in helping relatives and others in India, I mentioned earlier about giving gifts away, and per person, you can give up to $15,000 in 2021, that's the amount, and $30,000 per married couple to as many people as you want without having to file a gift tax return, okay? And that's per year. And so you can even gift to relatives in India. Any amount over that, for example, if I gift $20,000 to my cousin in India, that $5,000 difference between the $20,000 and the $15,000 is subject to gift tax, and you have to file a return on that $5,000. And why is that important? Why do you have to do that? Because that $5,000, every time you do that, sort of chips away at that $11.7 million lifetime exemption for your federal income tax. So they're keeping track. And so each time you file a gift tax return, which by the way is called a Form 709, they're keeping track on how much they're chipping away at that 11.7 million. Another way you can do is you can also pay tuition directly to institutions in India, even the United States. And they're not considered gifts at all. So you can make tuition payments. I believe it doesn't include books and room and board, but the actual tuition is okay. And, you know, during life, you can make donations to charities. Now, foreign charities while you're alive do not qualify for a charitable deduction, but there's some charities that you can find that are overseas that are subject and created under US laws that sort of mimic US charities that may qualify. And at death, you can qualify for the charitable deduction both for US based and foreign charities. So the rule changes a little bit upon your passing. And, you know, so you may be wondering, you just talk so much about everything now, what do I do? Well, the first thing you can do is take a deep breath. You know, I know I covered a lot. And then think, what are my next steps? You know, my next steps would be for you is to have a conversation maybe with your spouse, if you have adult children, and figure out who you want to call. You know, in the process of selecting attorney, and Madhu can speak to this as well, is, you know, finding someone, interviewing a few of them. And by interview, it's usually a consultation, right? And most of the consultations now are paid consultations. And it's worth the money to talk to several different attorneys, find one that you're comfortable with, before you decide that they're going to be the ones that you work with to draft your plan. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I don't, Madhu, if you have any questions. Let me just put up my contact information here. Again, I can help with Florida estate planning. And also, even if you have properties or things here in Florida, but you may reside in another state, you can also give my office a call. All right, thanks, Madhu.
Pitch on the last thing you dropped in there. Yes, it's worth it for the consultations to be paid $100, $200, whatever it is. The reason is there's so much information available once you Google it, any topic you wanted to say, either immigration, wills and trusts, or anything like that. But still, you need somebody to confirm that information, what's available there. There's so many blogs, there's so many channels, everybody write their experiences, everybody thinks so many things, you know, but you still, the reason you're calling the attorney is you need a confirmation. And it's worth it to give that right information to be paid for the minimum amount, you know. And I don't think so people wants to give any more the free advice. The reason is everybody knows that this is a pattern going on, and you want the confirmation, and it's totally worth it. Again and again, I say that, you know. Going forward for that, we do have a question here from Rahul Reddy. Once trustees pass away, does the trust cease to exist after passing assets to the beneficiaries?
That is a wonderful question. So, you know, when I first started, and I won't say how long ago, but when I was doing estate administration, the theme, was to do, like, set up a trust, right? And then do sort of ages and stages distributions where, okay, once my child reaches 21, they get 30%. At 30, they get another 30%. And then when they're 40, they'll get the final 30 whatever percent, right? And so now I'm seeing a trend toward doing more lifetime trusts where the trust lasts for the lifetime of both spouses, right? And then when they pass, it's a lifetime trust for the children. And so there's no mandatory distributions. And then when those children pass, it goes on to their children and so on and so forth, right? And usually, depending on the state that you live in, dictates how long this trust can last. And you can also look up, it's called a dynasty trust, lifetime trust, those type of things. It depends on what your goals are, you know. Which brings me to another point. You said it was Mr. Reddy, Madhu, who asked the question?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So one thing you want to do is when you first create this trust, right? It's not a one and done and put it away. It's okay, every year, you know, my birthday, annual doctor's appointment, let's pull out the documents, honey, me and your wife, you both pull it out. Okay, is everything still the same? Are my kids still doing well? Do I need to revise any of the provisions? Did I have another child? Did someone pass away? All of those things you sort of want to revisit your estate plan to make sure it's in tune. And you can always change it. That's the beauty of a trust. You can change it while you're alive. For example, if you want to make one child receive more, you can do that, or one child receive less. If one child is maybe having problems, you can tailor this trust to exactly how you want it at that time. And if circumstances change, you can then adjust the trust that way. So I hope that answers your question.
I hope so. If not, they can follow up by sending the email, forwarded that to you. Any other suggestions? One other thing is in the community, usually I do see is most of my friends, right? They're already in the airport, getting on the flight, you know, on the sudden they're worried because the kids are at home, you know? So hey, can you be my guardian, a representative for my kids, you know? Anil is trying to show something. Okay. So they just want to make a decision last minute before they get in the flight because they're worried about the kids being home, who will be taking care if something happens to us on our travel, or if something happens while they are at home, you know, who will be taking care of those things, you know. I know you covered a major part of it. I just want to give the last advice to our viewers, how important these things are, you know. I don't want you to start these things at the last minute. Start thinking ahead of the time. Start thinking who is that friend, who is that family member. In selecting that member is also very important because you want to make sure that what lifestyle they have, are they right people to take care of your kids when you're away. So these are the things which need to be planned ahead, you know, discussed ahead, you know. You watch other people's lifestyle, what questions you have for the people, you know. Or even like choosing your own sister, maybe just trying to more information, like being a sister is one thing, but being on the documentation, did they understand the procedure, what will happen after you passed, you know. When do you start all these conversations?
Those are all such excellent questions, Madhu. I mean, when to start? I would say now, right? Now that you are aware, right? If you've been listening, let's start now. Let's not wait for something to happen. Let's not wait before we get on the plane. Let's not wait until there's a pain point. A lot of times clients come when something's happened in their life that they now need to plan. You know, specifically this past year with COVID, a lot more people have been calling because they're seeing maybe their mortality, right? And so let's start now. And so one thing to do, Madhu suggested, is if you're thinking about naming your sister or the neighbor for the guardian, don't just put their name with the attorney. This is their name. I'm picking them, and never have a conversation. I actually had a consultation with a woman who was calling in sort of a panic. She was named in all these documents and did not know that she was named, and she didn't know what to do, you know. And so one thing I told Madhu is, listen, if you're going to think about somebody, call them up. Now with COVID, it's a little weird, but go to dinner and ask them. And this is after you've already decided that they're one person you may want. You've seen how they act with their children. You've seen their discipline style. You see their values, if religion is important to you, all of those things, education. And number one, don't worry about the money. Don't say, oh, they may not have enough money or they already have other kids, because if you set up this beautiful trust the right way, one thing I always suggest with minor children is you have life insurance for these kids, right? And so that money will pour into the trust, and whoever you select as successor trustee will manage the money while the guardian will worry about raising the children. Now, sometimes it could be the same people, and that's okay. But please, let's start having these conversations now. I picked my neighbor for a temporary guardian, and that was a process. It was, we're comfortable with each other, but also she was aware, right? The permanent guardian, same type of thing. The lifestyles have to match. And also one other thing I want to say with that, Madhu, is that if they have other kids, you know, you don't know when you're going to pass. It could happen tomorrow, unfortunately. Does your child at this moment have a relationship with those other children? Does he know, does she know them, right? Because it could happen tomorrow and then they may not be comfortable with those kids. So one of other questions to think about, and your attorney that you select should be able to go through all of this with you. And one final thing I want to say is all of this, you can write your dreams and your wishes for your guardian in letters. I want my son to be this. I want him to go here when he's 16, take him to Washington, D.C. I want you to do this for him. Like all of those things you can write so your guardian won't be lost.
So we do have a couple of questions here. Can we link estate planning in United States with India or vice versa?
So as I suggested, there's no direct link, but you have to hire an attorney there to deal with your Indian assets. Of course, you can always bring those assets here, bank accounts, things like that, liquidate them. I'm not suggesting, again, not advice, but if you want to bring the account here, as far as properties, you have to find an attorney there to be able to tell you how to pass those according to the Indian law in that state.
And it's also good to have one consultation or the meeting together with the attorney in the United States and the attorney in India, and you being with somebody and having that mutual call is also very, very important to understand that, how this will be passed in the future.
Exactly. Great suggestion.
So one more question. Is it true that New Jersey is a very probate friendly state and so a will is enough?
So I don't know about New Jersey. I can't even speak to New Jersey, but I will tell you that, it's worth calling a New Jersey attorney and asking. For me, for my family, a will is not enough, one thing, please, if there's an area that to focus on as far as spending money, is this area, because people say, it costs a lot to do a will and a trust. It may, I can't tell you what other attorneys' fees are. I don't compare mine to any others. But I'll tell you this, it's much less now to pay than later on trying to deal with all the nonsense if you don't have a proper plan.
Yep, I think that's all. We have the questions. Being said that, start thinking about it. If you don't have enough information or education, start reading more about it. Contact the attorney, have that initial consultation. Even if you're doing down the road, years from now, it doesn't matter, but there is a plan and the thinking need to be done. Even the people who already consulted the attorney, they take a year sometimes to get finalized these documents, and it's okay, as long as you know that what the documents are for, why is it important, and you can keep doing that. It's no big deal, but the most important thing is education and awareness on this, so this is why I want to do as a legal chair for the ATA, want to bring different topics as education and bring that awareness to see that we can start thinking about it as a community. I don't think so. I think that it's a less than 10% of the lot of our community actually think about the wills and the trusts. It's not like they don't want to do it. We all work hard to make money and buy these properties, and we all want the best for our kids, our parents. We want to be there for and all those things, but we just don't have enough education or the awareness to put this everything legally and planned way. We are in a country where it is full of laws and regulations, so we need to have this documentation to be in place. So well, Hashi, it was such a great webinar. Thank you so much for coming to the ATA, and I personally thank you as a friend to be here.
Thank you so much, Madhu, and thank you, Ata, for the invitation. I had so much fun. I would love to come back and do part 2, so thank you again.
Anil Gar, anything from your side, or are we wrapping up?
Yeah, I'm going to give some closing comments. Stay on.
I had so much fun. I would love to. Anil Gar, anything from your side?
థ్యాంక్ యూ అండి. సో ఐ హోప్ మీరు ఇప్పుడు ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ మీకు యూజ్ అయిందని అనుకుంటున్నాను. అండ్ వన్స్ అగైన్ బిహాఫ్ ఆఫ్ ఆటా, థ్యాంక్ యూ హషి ఫర్ యువర్ టైమ్ యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ కన్సిడరేషన్ అండ్ హెల్ప్ వాట్ యూ గివెన్ ఫర్ ద కమ్యూనిటీ. అండ్ థ్యాంక్ యూ మధురిమ గారు ఫర్ moderating, and as we know, you're always there for ATA. So thank you very much once again on behalf of ATA. And meanwhile, I just wanted to say, July 1, 2, 3, 2022, we are going to celebrate a mega convention in US in DC. So everyone, please try to plan yourself to attend the conference in July 1, 2, 3, 2022 in DC, Virginia. And meanwhile, we are going to play an invitation song right now. So please watch and enjoy. Thank you.
లెగరా మనకు ఆహ్వానమంటోంది ఆట, వదరా వదరా మన తెలుగోడి ఐక్యాన్ని చాట. వాషింగ్టన్ DC వీధులు పోటెత్తాలిరా, లోకం తెలుగోడి ఖ్యాతిని జై కొట్టాలిరా. లెగరా లెగరా మనకు ఆహ్వానమంటోంది ఆట, వదరా వదరా మన తెలుగోడి ఐక్యాన్ని చాట. వాషింగ్టన్ DC వీధులు పోటెత్తాలిరా, లోకం తెలుగోడి ఖ్యాతిని జై కొట్టాలిరా. కష్టాలు వచ్చినా కన్నీళ్లు వచ్చినా భుజాలు తట్టనేస్తమే, సభలకు వచ్చిన వితరణనిచ్చిన ఆ మాతృమట్టి కోసమే. 90లోనే బీజం వేసి చెట్టైటి ఇవ్వాలిరా, ఎన్నారైనా చిన్నలో పెట్టింది దీపాలిగా, తెలుగు సంస్కృతికే అన్నీ హోరెత్తిందిరా. జగతిన తెలుగోడి జెండా పైకెత్తిందిరా. వాషింగ్టన్ DC వీధులు పోటెత్తాలిరా, లోకం తెలుగోడి ఖ్యాతిని జై కొట్టాలిరా.
ఆకాశమే అక్కై అలరించే ఈ వేదిక, ప్రతివారికి ఆహ్వానమంతమే రారెండిగా.
కళల వైభవం యువత ప్రాభవం ఆట మహోత్సవం, జరాలి అందరం చూడాలి సుందరం, రెండేళ్ల కోసం భరం. విచ్చేసిన తారాలోకం వినోద విన్యాసాలు, వచ్చేసిన ప్రతిభకు ఇచ్చే సన్మాన ప్రోత్సాహాలు, తెలుగు ఐక్యతకి ఆట చేసే వ్రతం. చూడ పలికింది నీకు సుస్వాగతం. వాషింగ్టన్ DC, వాషింగ్టన్ DC, వాషింగ్టన్ DC వీధులు పోటెత్తాలిరా.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం. సౌత్ ఆఫ్రికన్ తెలుగు కమ్యూనిటీ వీడిఆర్గా సంయుక్తంగా నిర్వహిస్తున్నదే మన ఎన్ఆర్ఐ తెలుగు ఐడల్. సో ఆల్రెడీ నిన్న మనం జూనియర్స్ సెక్షన్ చూసాం. అందరూ కూడా అద్భుతంగా పాటలు పాడారు, ఒకరిని మించి ఇంకొకరు. అసలు మనం ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేయలేం, అంటే చిన్న చిన్న పిల్లలు అంత ముద్దుగా అంత అందంగా పాడతారని. సో అలా సూపర్ గా పాడేశారు. అండ్ ఈ రోజు సీనియర్ సెక్షన్. సో లాస్ట్ టైం 20 మంది పార్టిసిపేట్ చేశారు, అందులో నుంచి 10 మంది ఇప్పుడు మన సెమీఫైనల్స్ కి వచ్చారు. ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ వాళ్ళందరికీ కూడా కంగ్రాచులేషన్స్. అండ్ ఈ రోజు మనతో పాటు మన జడ్జ్ గా విజయలక్ష్మి గారు రెడీగా ఉన్నారు. సో పాటలన్నీ వినడానికి అండ్ వాళ్ళకి మంచి మంచి కామెంట్స్ ఇవ్వడానికి. హాయ్ మ్యామ్, నమస్కారం.
నమస్తే.
ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
ఫైన్ ఫైన్, చాలా బాగున్నాను. ఈగర్లీ వెయిటింగ్ టు లిసన్ టు ఆల్ ద పార్టిసిపెంట్స్.
సో నేను కూడా. అండ్ మా ఎన్ఆర్ఐ తెలుగు ఐడల్ మీ అందరికీ బాగా తెలుసు, 70కి పైగా తెలుగు సమైక్యల సౌజన్యంతో కలిసి ఇలా మన కళాకారులు కోవిడ్ టైంలో ఎంతో మంది ఇబ్బంది పడుతున్నారు, వాళ్ళకి మనం సహాయం చేయాలి అని చెప్పి స్టార్ట్ చేసిందే మన ఎన్ఆర్ఐ తెలుగు ఐడల్. అండ్ అలానే 37కి పైగా మన మిగిలిన కంట్రీస్ లో ఉన్న మన తెలుగు పీపుల్ అందరూ కూడా ఇందులో పార్టిసిపేట్ చేస్తున్నారు. అండ్ చాలా గ్రాండ్ గా జరుగుతుంది. ప్రతిరోజు కూడా మీరు అందరూ సక్సెస్ చేస్తున్నారు. అండ్ ఆడియన్స్ కి స్పెషల్ థ్యాంక్స్ మా అందరి తరపు నుంచి, ఎందుకంటే మీరు ఆదరిస్తున్నారు కాబట్టి ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఇంత బాగా సక్సెస్ అవుతుంది. సో ఇంకా ఏ మాత్రం లేట్ చేయకుండా మనమైతే ఈ రోజు మన ఎన్ఆర్ఐ తెలుగు ఐడల్ సీనియర్ సెక్షన్ ని స్టార్ట్ చేసేద్దాం. సో స్టార్ట్ చేసే ముందు మనకి ప్రతిసారి ఓటింగ్ సెక్షన్ మనకి ఒక 5 days ఉంటుంది. బట్ ఈసారి మన సీనియర్ సెషన్ పీపుల్ ఆగస్ట్ 9th వరకు మీరు ఓటింగ్ సెషన్ ఉంటుంది. సో ఆగస్ట్ 9th వరకు మీరు ఓటింగ్ సెషన్ లో పాల్గొనొచ్చు, ఓట్స్ చేయొచ్చు. అదనమాట. మరి ఇంకెందుకు ఆలస్యం, ఈ రోజు మన ఫస్ట్ పార్టిసిపెంట్ ని పిలిచేద్దాం. సందీప్ చేతన్ గారు ఫ్రమ్ ఆస్ట్రేలియా. ప్లీజ్ వెల్కమ్ హిమ్. సందీప్ గారు
నమస్కారం అండి. ఫర్ ద నైస్ ఇంట్రొడక్షన్. నా పేరు సందీప్.
కంగ్రాచులేషన్ సందీప్ గారు.
థ్యాంక్స్ అలాట్ అండి. చాలా బాగా అనిపించింది యాక్చువల్లీ. ఆఫ్టర్ లాంగ్ టైమ్ అట్లా కాంపిటీషన్స్లో మళ్ళీ పాడుకోవడం, సెమీఫైనల్స్ రావడం అంటే ఇట్ ఫీల్స్ వెరీ నైస్. డెఫినెట్లీ.
సో ఎలాగో సెమీఫైనల్స్ కి వచ్చేసారు కాబట్టి ఒక మంచి పార్టీతో స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి మరి ఈ రోజు మనం.
ష్యూర్.
మరి పార్టీ ఏం తీసుకొచ్చారు?
పార్టీ కొరియర్లో ఉందండి. నా పార్టీ మీకు పార్టీ అండి ఇవాళ ప్రస్తుతానికి.
ఓకే. సో సందీప్ ఏం పాట పాడబోతున్నారు ఈరోజు?
సో ఫోక్ జోనర్ లో చాలా డిఫరెంట్ ఈవెంట్ అంశాల పైన టచ్ చేసి ఉంటారు. సో ఒక దేశభక్తి గేయాలు కానీ లేకపోతే ఒక మేల్కొలు పాట కానీ, నేను ఒక బావమరదల సాంగ్ ఒకటి, అది దట్స్ వెరీ, అంటే అది ఐ థింక్ బావమరదల ఆ కాన్సెప్ట్ అది చాలా మటుకు ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ మన తెలుగు వాళ్ళకి చాలా చాలా క్లోజ్ కాబట్టి ఇది నాకు చాలా బాగా అనిపించింది. గల్గల్ సప్పుల గాజులు తెత్తానే బై వడ్లకొండ అనిల్ పాటని.
సో ఫస్ట్ ఒక ఎనర్జెటిక్ సాంగ్ తో వచ్చేస్తున్నారు. ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. గల్గల్ సపుళ్ళ గాజులు తెత్తానే, రంగు రంగుల రైకలు తెత్తానే, గాజులేసుకోయే పిల్ల మోజులన్నీ తీరా, మంజుల మనసు పడితేనే నీ మీద, మరదలా నీ మేనబావ నీనే కాదా, గల్గల్ సపుళ్ళ గాజులు తెత్తానే, రంగు రంగుల రైకలు తెత్తానే, గుండీల రైగ దొడిగి ఎట్ల బండెక్కి నువ్వోస్తుంటే సన్నని నడుము దానా నిన్నిడిచి బతకనే జానా ఉంగరాల కురులు బంగారు కొచ్చు జడలు మంజుల మనసు పడితేనే నీ మీద మరదలాని మేనభావ నీనే గాదా గల్గల్ సపుళ్ళ గాజులు దెత్తానే రంగు రంగుల రైకలు దెత్తానే
chintavali@gmail.com.
Do you want to know about your future? Do you want to fix your love and marriage situation? Clear separation issues, clear spiritual blocks, business problems, career issues or health challenges? Astrologer Priya can help you circumvent all your life's challenges in a jiffy with her deep and profound astrological charts and expertise, and her clairvoyant abilities can give a quick fix and a peaceful solution to life's most difficult problems and puzzles. For more information, please call Priya at 201-925-7731. Also, please visit Priya's website astrologybypriya.com. And remember, her new clients will receive one-time free reading.
Wonder how you can get groceries, your favorite food from your favorite restaurants, flowers, delectable desserts from the best bakers at your doorstep? Wonder how you can avoid those lengthy lines in your favorite stores and sit at home with ease and get your desired goods? iPerks is the way to go. iPerks is a lovely, candid, user-friendly, fun mobile app to shop and navigate through all that you love and get them delivered at your doorstep with just a few quick clicks. Now available in a 60-mile radius from Edison, New Jersey, you need not shop till you drop. Let iPerks drop off all that you love to the place you call home. With all your items, groceries, best food, flowers, and more, dispensed in embellished and strongly packed biodegradable